Today, we're honored to welcome a guest whose story is one of extraordinary resilience, hope, and the power of reclaiming your life.
Our guest is Sarah Krivos, author of Silver Scars. Like so many women, Sarah found herself living a life that from the outside looked full, but behind the scenes, she was fighting a battle only very few could see.
In her late 30s, she was overwhelmed by chronic Lyme disease, debilitating physical symptoms, neurological challenges, and years of emotional trauma. At the same time, she was trying to raise her young children, nurture her marriage, and simply make it through each day. The weight of it all became so unbearable that there were moments when she questioned whether she wanted to keep living. But Sarah's story is not defined by illness. It's defined by courage. Rather than accepting that this was all life had to offer, she chose to ask a different question. What if healing is still possible? That question led her far beyond the traditional path she'd always known and into the world of holistic healing, where she began addressing not only her physical symptoms, but also the emotional and neurological wounds she had carried for years. Along the way, she discovered something that became her foundation to her healing. And the message at the heart of her book, that we all have an incredible capacity to heal, grow, and reconnect with the wisdom that already lives within us.
Today, Sarah has fully reclaimed her health and her life. She holds an MBA, has built a successful career in financial services, lives in Wisconsin with her husband, their children, and their rescue pit bulls, and is now inspiring others to her powerful story in Silver Scars. Sarah, thank you for trusting us with your story. We're so honored to have you here. Welcome to Unravel and Uplift.
We're really excited to have you here today. We've read your book, and I'm going to put a little plug here. This is Sarah's book here, okay? Silver Scars, a memoir of chronic Lyme disease and recovery. But I feel today, Sarah, we're here more than just to talk about what it was like for you going through all of those symptoms and coming out the other end. I feel like this is a real story of resilience and things that you learned about yourself. So I'm excited to welcome you here today and start this conversation. So today, we'd love to unravel that journey with you. We'll talk about the challenges, the fear, the moments that tested you, and the unexpected lessons that emerged along the way. Most importantly, we want to explore what healing has taught you about resilience, hope, and what it truly means to reclaim your life. Because we have a feeling that whether someone is navigating chronic illness, emotional trauma, grief, burnout, or simply feeling disconnected from themselves, they're going to see pieces of their own story in yours. Sarah, we're so grateful that you're here today with us. Let's unravel your story together. So Sarah, before we talk about Lyme disease, books, recovery, or healing, I'd love to start with you. How would you describe yourself before all of this happened?
Before I got sick, I think people would describe me as the Energizer bunny. I was constantly ready for anything, always on the go, whether that be working out, ready to hang out with friends, karaoke or dance party, hanging with the kids. I was just the life of the party, always willing to have a good time and down for absolutely anything.
Sounds like you had all of the energy in the world.
I sure did.
And looking back now, were there cracks beginning to form before your body forced you to pay attention?
There were absolutely cracks forming since I was young that I ignored because I had been sick most of my life. And I think I got so used to living in this constant state of discomfort and fatigue and tiredness that I just assumed this is how everybody felt. I didn't know anything differently. So rather than resting and sleeping and trying to get better, I just pushed through it. So even though I was tired all the time and feeling like crap, I would just keep going because I wanted to have fun. And again, I just thought that this is what humans are supposed to feel like. And I was completely wrong. But I really didn't realize that until years later.
Thanks for sharing that, Sarah. So are you okay to take us back to those first symptoms and give us a sense of what was happening for you? How were you feeling?
Yeah, those first symptoms, I mentioned it was easy to push stuff away and to ignore things until I couldn't ignore it anymore. So, in my book, I specifically write about when I fully realized that like something was wrong. I was driving to the gym, I would work out every single day. And I remember driving to the gym and I was at a stoplight and I just had these eye floaters. Like I was looking through a screen that came out of nowhere. And just this overall sense of unease, like a cloud just kind of like descended upon me. And I just thought, well, maybe I just didn't get enough sleep last night. I'm a new mom. I have young kids. So moms are always tired. So again, I ignored it. I went to the gym. I did my grueling workout and I came home. And from then on, things proceeded to really go downhill quickly. And so I noticed a lot more mysterious symptoms, brain fog, anxiety, paranoia really set in, joint pain. And I started to decrease the intensity of my workouts. I started to kind of try to sit in the hot tub in the sauna more with no relief whatsoever.
That sounds really difficult. And to have that acknowledgement of that going on for you must have been life-changing.
Yeah. It was really hard because I view asking for help as a weakness. I think a lot of women, a lot of people, a lot of women particularly do. And so I didn't want to tell anybody how I was feeling because I just thought, well, just suck it up. Like
Right.
I'm not the only person who has kids. I'm not the only one who works like and does this. So just suck it up. All these other moms are doing it and are fine. So I really didn't want to seem weak by letting anybody else know what was going on, even my husband. And I internalized it and I just tried to push through for as long as I could.
That had been
When
so
was
difficult.
when was the point where you kind of realized, Sarah, I have to share this?
Yeah, I think it's when I noticed my hair started falling out. As I was I was at the gym, I was taking a shower and I just noticed it felt thinner. And as I was washing it, I'd go like this and just it would just clumps were falling out. And so that was really the last straw where I was like, oh my God, like something seriously wrong. And it was more like the vanity part of it, which I mean, how like egotistical saying that out loud. But it really, I was like, oh my God, if I lose my hair, what's going to happen? And so it was that point in time in that shower in the gym where I was like, oh my God, like something's wrong. I can't ignore this anymore.
Yeah, I
That's
think
so
that makes sense
scary.
though, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
As women, I think we can harbor and hide a lot of things, but when it physically starts showing, I'm sure that feels like then you can't hide anymore, right? And then people are going to know something's wrong. And yeah, that's deep. That's deep for sure.
Well, and I feel like for women, for us, hair is a key piece of who we are, as well. It's part of our identity. So for
Hmm.
that to start happening to you, I'm sure was very scary, Sarah.
Hmm.
So when you started to share what was going on for you with others, what was their reaction?
Well, the thing is, I didn't really share a ton up front because I just thought, I've had Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So I thought my thyroid was just acting up. So I went to see my thyroid doctor and get my levels tested. And I was the epitome of a perfect patient. So nothing was wrong with my levels. I had these headaches. I went to see a neurologist. He looked at me like I was absolutely crazy for wasting his time. And so I was seeing all these specialists and they were telling me that I was fine. So, I told my husband, Dan, hey, I'm not feeling right. Like something's wrong. Um, but because I didn't have anybody who could like point to something and say, yes, this is what you have, like your thyroid is acting up, or you have a brain tumor, or you have cancer, whatever it is, I was made to think that it was really all in my head. So, um, so again, and that's not something that I wanted to share with my family or friends. Like, hey, I'm not feeling good. The doctors think I'm crazy, but this is real. So
And that must have been such a heavy burden for you to kind of cover all of that, what was going on for you, keep it to yourself, and also continue in your roles as a wife, as a mother, in your job. How did you deal with that?
how do I deal with that? Well, in my past, I've had a history of, bad things happen, traumatic things happen, and you just kind of move on and keep going because that's what we need to do to live our life. And so I think I implemented what I learned in my childhood throughout my illness. No matter how bad you feel, no matter what is going on, you get out of bed every day and you put one foot in front of the other and you keep going. So, um, you know, it was very difficult because to be a wife, to be a mom, to still focus on my career, while also feeling like death it seemed insurmountable. And that's really where all of the mental and emotional depression really kicked in, because I thought I was doing a good job of dealing with everything, but I was really kind of turning away from myself, from my own needs. And when you do that, there's a huge disconnect there. And so I really questioned, why was I getting up every morning? Like, this is absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
It's miserable going through my days feeling like death. And so I really, had a lot of suicidal ideation at that.
Yeah. That's a lot for one person to carry on their own, Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very heavy for very long.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I know that's not probably something that's very easy to share, but we appreciate you sharing that with our audience.
Yeah. I think it's a part of the reason why I did share so much of that in my book is because um, it's important. We gloss over so much of the bad stuff in this life, and everybody deals with their own bag of crap, right? We
Yeah.
all have problems. Like, life is hard. We all have problems. We all deal with issues. We all deal with feelings of being less than, and I'm not living up to what so and so is doing, or I could be a better mom. We all have that mom guilt, and so it was a lot to carry for a long time.
So, Sarah, what do you think people misunderstand the most about chronic illness?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misunderstandings out there, but I think the biggest one is that it is real. There are a lot of people who think, oh, you're faking. It is 100% real. And to be completely honest, I was probably one of those people who thought, oh, you're just faking. Suck it up, buttercup, before I got sick. So, I'm obviously much more empathetic now, but um, it's so different than having cancer, right? Or you're getting chemo, radiation, you lose your hair, you can clearly see something,
Mhm.
um, or you break your leg, like you're on crutches, you can clearly physically see what is wrong with you. And chronic illness, for so many people, you don't look any different. Like, you look
Right.
completely the same on the outside, everything. It's not like you have, big bruises all over your body or anything like that. And so I think it's really difficult for people to really think that anything is wrong when you still physically look so much like yourself.
Right. And that's one line in the book that really stuck out, is when you say, I was not pretending to be sick, I was pretending to be well. Like, that is such a heavy statement that I think, even if you have moments in your life where you're struggling with something, not a chronic illness, where, like you said, you lift yourself up, you pull yourself together, you put on the clown face, you get out there and you do the thing. But to do that over such a span of time that you had to do that. And I know in the book you talk about showing up for events, your husband's birthday party, and trying to represent, and then just being so depleted and just feeling probably like a failure on so many levels, when people did not truly understand what was going on inside you, had to been just so intense. I mean, during that part of the book, I was just like page turner. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? That was crazy. So I can't even imagine how much energy, it took to appear okay, when it sounds like, I mean, you weren't.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, um, that's a very defining line, because for all those years, I would get done. I talk about the parasites in my book. I would get done with finish up a coffee enema and eliminating parasites, and then have to go to a work event and act like everything
Right.
was fine when I was my body was shaking. I was horrified at what was happening, and I would go and, hey guys, how's it going?
Right.
Everything's fine, like one of those things. And the toll it takes to act like, put on this persona that is really not you at all for that long. It was completely detrimental to my well-being.
Yeah. And why do you think, from your perspective, why do women hide that pain? What is what sacrifices, what cost do you think you made in having to pretend that everything was okay?
Yeah, I mean, I sacrificed my family, my mental health. You know, I think
Right.
had I listened to what my body was telling me earlier on, had I said, you know what, I can't go to this because of what just happened, or
Mhm.
I'm not feeling up to it. I need to rest. If I had done that, I feel like I would have healed way earlier than I did. But I think as women, you know, for in many cases, we are the primary caregivers of our
Yeah.
family. So, like when we get sick, when you get sick and your husbands or your partners have to take care, it's a free for all. I mean, at least in my house, you know. And then you come down, there's dishes, the kids are yelling. It's just pure chaos. And so,
Yeah.
um, we would rather kind of maintain that sense of normalcy and balance than to take time to rest. And I think that we are all doing ourselves a major disservice by, you know, putting our needs last and putting everybody else's needs first. Because if we don't have anything left to give, like if our cup is empty, we can't fill anybody else's cup. And so I think we really need to like switch the narrative and switch kind of like what is normal and customary and realize that, hey, as moms and as females, our mental health and our physical well being needs to come first. If that means putting the kids in front of a screen for an hour or two so we can get some
Mhm.
rest, then so be it. But that absolutely needs to change.
I think that's key, Sarah, really. And I think I really appreciate your openness and transparency around those mental health battles that you really went through. You know, feeling suicidal, feeling like there was no point living anymore is huge. And for you to be so brave to share that with people, I'm floored. I really am. And I suppose I'm curious. I know you've talked about obviously trying to change that narrative around mental health. I'm curious around how difficult it was for you to share that, first of all, in the book, and what was behind the sharing that with everyone.
Yeah, as far as how difficult it was to share, it was not as difficult as I thought. I think I've been carrying the weight of this for so many years.
Mhm.
You know, I started cutting myself when I was 16, so like self harm has, you know, I've had decades of that. I haven't done it in years, thank God, but um, it almost felt like a weight being lifted off that I was able to express this. Because again, I know I'm not the only one who's done that. I know I'm not the only one, even though I may have done it. I know other people have probably felt it, haven't followed through on it. But you know, when I did self harm, it was like a physical release. Like it felt
Mhm.
so good because it was like a physical release of the pain I felt inside. And so to like see the blood and to see the cuts, um, it's almost like this euphoric high for,
Mhm.
you know, for a couple seconds. Um, so by sharing that, you know, my goal is to not normalize it, but to let others know that like it's it is unfortunately what some people experience, and it is um, you are able to get better from it. Like life is worth living. And as bad as it may seem one day, like the next day, you know, the sun's shining, the birds are chirping. Like I look at my kids outside riding their bikes and it's like, how could I how could I feel this despair one moment and this, you know, joy the next day? Um, and then slowly over time, as you kind of work through all that pain and all that trauma, um, it becomes it becomes less heavy.
Mhm.
It becomes less heavy. And when you share that with others, when you have somebody else to lighten your load, um, it's easier to manage.
I am so impressed by your resilience, Sarah. I really, you know, just the bravery in sharing that so that others know that they're not alone, and also working through it, not just for yourself, but for everyone else around you, is very impressive. And I'm so grateful that you shared that part in your book because I think it does start to change the narrative. It does help others understand they're not the only ones going through something, you know, and I think that's something as women we kind of need to hear.
Yeah, I think there's something special in shared pain, right? Like it's once you hear somebody, you're like, oh, that really resonates with me, or I understand those feelings, and I felt that same way too. And when you're chronically ill, you kind of feel like you're on this island, right? This nobody understands. Nobody's been here before. And so many people understand, and so many people have been there before. The difference is that not a lot of people share their stories. They're either not well enough to, or they don't feel like, they have enough clout. And I think really that's what makes humanity so great, is that once we share our stories, there's so many other people who resonate with it and who relate to it, and who you can help feel like you're part of a bigger community.
So that was a lot for you to go through. I don't think we should minimize that at all. I'd be really interested though to if you were able to sit with that younger version of you, and now almost say, okay, what did you learn about yourself? What were your takeaways from going through all of that? I'm fascinated to hear.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of inner child work throughout my healing journey, and I hate sitting with previous versions of myself, but I'll try to do it for you.
Thank you, Sarah.
um, yeah, my emotional coach knows exactly what I'm talking about. It makes me very uncomfortable. But no, what if I could go back and tell my younger self, as I was starting my healing journey, like, you're gonna be okay. It's going to be okay. Just trust your gut and follow your intuition. I think that helped me more than anything in this. It was completely shunning, 37 years of what I knew of medicine and healing, and going a complete opposite direction. So I had to really forge my own path. And by doing so, I learned a lot about healing. I learned a lot about resilience. I learned a lot about what I can, how strong I really am, and what I can actually overcome. So I think just letting people know that, like, hey, it is going to get better. Like, this one moment in time, or this 1 year or couple of years in time, this does not define who you are. And you are going to be more beautiful once you get to the other side of this.
So one thing I appreciated about your book, Sarah, is that it wasn't really a story about just Lyme disease. It was more about you healing as a whole person. So I know that you, at the beginning of the book, you talk about your relationship with your family and your mom and your dad, and a tragedy that happened with your brother. And it sort of takes us on that path, and then it really spins back to Lyme disease. So when you talk about that function of healing those issues of your childhood and then Lyme disease, and how that chronic illness relates back to so many factors that you dealt with when you were growing up and things that you experienced. How did all of that come together? I mean, probably just that release and realizing that so much of that was intertwined, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I had no idea of the connection between, the physical, mental, spiritual body.
Yeah,
Growing up with that Western medicine background, I just thought, okay, you're sick, you go to the doctor, you take a pill, and you're better. And when you're dealing with chronic illness, that's not a solution.
right.
It doesn't work that way. And so, what I realized throughout my healing journey is that the majority of people who do have chronic illness, whether it's chronic Lyme or fibromyalgia or MS, any form of chronic illness, there is a mental and emotional component to it, whether that is unresolved trauma, unprocessed trauma. You cannot physically mend the body without mending the mind. And so when people are chronically ill longer than 3 months, there really tends to be that mental component to it. And so, I mentioned in the past, like, my family's way of dealing with all the traumatic deaths, from the plane crash, my grandfather and brother when I was 5, my mom's death when I was 16, my brother's suicide playing Russian roulette when I was 24. Like, our way of processing that was, okay, like, I went to school the day after my mom died. It was just like,
Right.
pick yourself up and let's move forward. And we weren't equipped with the tools or the resources to process that weight of all of that grief. And so we did the only thing that we knew how to do, which was get up and move forward. So my
Right.
whole life, that's what I've been doing. And only when I got sick was it really brought to my attention that, like, hey, you never process this. You never process this. And so what
Mhm.
happens when you don't process emotions? Where does it go?
Right.
It stays in you. stays inside of your body, and your body remembers things, right? We all have patterns. It's like how you can drive from your house to the grocery store without even thinking about it. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, how did I get to the grocery store? Like your mind is somewhere else. And so your body just remembers all of these things. So my body had all these years of, you know, traumatic experiences in them. And so I was really stuck in this fight or flight mode. I was always waiting for the shoe to drop and for the next phone call to tell me that somebody I loved had died, or somebody
Right.
was in a bad accident or something traumatic, because um, that's been my whole life, you know? So I was always kind of like this, like just my fist in a ball, just waiting for that. And when you do that, your body can never fully relax. It
Right.
can't, you can't, get any type of restorative sleep. You're always like waiting to be attacked by the tiger. And so my emotional coach helped me work through processing all that grief, processing like that traumatic phone call learning my brother died, processing everything and like really crying and letting it go and releasing it. So once I did that, it was easier for the rest of my cells to be like, you're safe. It's okay. You don't need to live in this fight or flight mode anymore. You can rest and you can heal. So if I had not done all of that emotional work, I guarantee you there's no way I would be where I am today.
Right. Yeah, it really starts there, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, I have to say, flipping through the book and reading page by page, I read it on spring break. I could not put it down. I'm like, could any more happen to Sarah? I mean, it was wild. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like every page of what you went through is, for many people, would be like 100 lifetimes, right? So that trauma and probably that feeling of how do you catch a break, and can this really be happening to me? I can't even probably sitting now that you're in a different place in your life and reflecting on this journey that you went in from a very young child to until you were in remission, or you will, or healed, has to be so surreal that all of this happened. I just, even reliving it now with you, I'm like, gosh, Sarah, it's wild. It's wild.
And
Claire,
also
I'll hand
just
it back
going
over to
through that, yeah, I feel like just, at the beginning we talked a lot about how you carried on as normal. This was going on for you. You were going through all of these different alternative ways of exploring, but keeping them to yourself still, because no one was diagnosing you. No one was saying, this is what's happening for you, Sarah. You had to explore all of these alternative ways to find a way to heal yourself.
in the search for healing, which I think is crazy, right? That first of all, that you live in the Minneapolis suburbs and that all these people were available to you, because I'm sure these people aren't readily available in the phone book, right? So and how you were, and you probably had this moment where you thought you were like you were losing your mind, or your husband or your friends or
Yeah,
family, like, you're doing what? Like,
yeah.
like witch doctor? Because again, we're so programmed on that Western medicine. So Claire, you can,
Yeah,
I'm really going
perfect.
back to the book now. I'm really excited about this. So yes, Claire,
Fantastic. I
take her
just
down the
wanted to make
path.
sure we're on
Take
the
her down the
same bit.
path.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think I found it so fascinating, not only your openness to trying all of these things, but also just your reality in terms of how you describe them. Like these became just normal practices for you, like just like going to a doctor's appointment for a lot of people with this Western medicine. I mean, you tried everything: coffee enemas, infrared saunas, light therapy, salt rooms, Reiki, sound baths, tapping, energy healers, float therapy, psychics, shamanic healing, chakra work. I'm sure there's more to that list as well, Sarah. Um, I suppose I'm curious, at what point did it click that you're like, I am willing to try anything?
Yeah, yeah. I did do a lot of crazy stuff. And you know what? It all worked in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how, when, where, or why, but they all led me to healing. So,
Mhm.
I don't know if there's like one definitive moment in time where I'm like, I will do anything. It just kind of like spider web from one thing to the other. So in my first or second coaching call with Dr. Nick, when he talked about the coffee enemas, I was like, wait, I'm sorry. Like, what? Like, I had never heard of these. And so literally the next day at my doorstep, there was a coffee enema kit. I was like, well, okay. So it became very normal. When you're doing 3 to 4 coffee enemas a week for 2 years. I mean, my friends, they'd be like, oh yeah, Sarah's in her bathroom again, with a coffee up her butt. And it was, I normalized it. Like I wanted to tell people what I was doing because I wanted them to understand like, hey, like I really am sick and these are the crazy things that I'm doing. So, it helped to like keep my friends, the ones that I still had, it helped to keep them, in tune with what I was doing and also kind of keep it lighthearted because I didn't want all my interactions with them to be this like doom and gloom and I'm dying. I wanted it to be like, well, I tried this today and we'll see what happens. Um, so it really started with the coffee enemas. I drank celery juice for about 2 years straight. I ate just raw vegetables for 9 days straight, which was not the most fun thing in the world. I saw all these different psychics and yeah, the shamanic healing, the energy healers chanted in the crystal grotto and, the energy vortex at Sedona. And every single thing, like I said, led me to the next. So if I was at my Reiki healer, I saw a card on the table for float therapy. And I was like, oh, I'm going to float in a weightless pool of salt water. Let's try that. So I went to try that and that kind of had a unique experience. And then from there, I would find a card or I would talk to somebody there who would mention something else. And whatever resonated with me, I said, well, what do I have to lose? I can't get worse. I didn't think I could get worse by trying this. And so I just thought like, I'm going to do whatever is in my power, whatever is in my control to get better. And, I first started seeing psychics because I wanted like that quick answer. I wanted like, okay, this person is going to be able to see into my future and tell me like, this is the one thing that's wrong with you and you can do this to fix it. I wanted them to like wave their magic wand over me and be like, now you're healed. And I was expecting that after every single appointment. And, spoiler alert, that doesn't happen. That's not reality. However, it does bring you one step closer to healing because each one of those sessions made me aware of something that I had turned a blind eye to, or that I had repressed and pushed down, or it opened me up to a different healing modality. So will forever be grateful for every single thing I tried, experienced, every single person I met throughout my healing journey. And they all played a part in it.
I'm grateful you shared it because honestly, I mean, I feel like there are different modalities of healing out there. And I think by you spelling them out in the book, that has made me more aware of, oh, actually, there is someone out there that might be able to help with this or that. And I think it shines a really great light on the fact that there are things that exist in this world that we're not every day familiar with. With that being said, I'm sure there were judgments. How did people react when you were telling them about these alternative things you were doing?
Yeah, I kept a lot of it really close to, really close to the vest. So I didn't share a ton at the time when I was in the thick of it. Like I share it now because I'm better, but when I was in the middle of it, I didn't know if this stuff was going to work. Like my dad, again, orthopedic surgeon, grew up Western medicine. My sister's a radiologist. Like they're kind of like, okay, that's a little woo woo. But, once I did share with them what happened and what I experienced, my dad's like, well, that's kind of cool, and I think I do believe in that stuff. So I maybe had prejudged what they were going to think of me. And by doing so, I wasn't as open to share with them. So some of my friends, one of my best friends is very into that stuff. So she was right by my side the whole way. And then others were kind of like, okay, Sarah, yeah, you go ahead, you do that, see what happens. But I didn't tell a ton of people. Dan knew everything I did, and he just wanted me to get better. So he was like, whatever you need to do, whatever you think you need to do, go ahead and do it. I fully support you. So
yeah, that's amazing.
But yeah, I really was pretty quiet about it while I was in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you did mention earlier too about you lost some friends along the way. And I'm sure that even for people that were in your circle, it was probably really difficult for them to see you go through this. And some people probably couldn't process it well. And maybe they chose to remove themselves from that situation. And that had to have been really hard too, because, just when you think you know someone, or in I think we've all had times where we've gone through a tough time and then who really shows up for you. So that's insightful in itself.
Yeah, and I think, looking back too, it was, I'm definitely to blame for the dissolution of those friendships. At the time, I wanted something from them that they couldn't give, but looking back, like I was also not a very good friend at that time either. I turned inward and I became a different person, and I became, short, didn't return text messages, didn't return phone calls. So, initially I blamed them for not supporting me, but now that I'm on the other side, I'm like, I wasn't that nice of a person either. So, and you know what? Those friendships weren't, not every friendship is supposed to be for your entire life. So they're there
Yeah.
for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And those were there for a short season, and that's okay. They served its
Mhm.
purpose.
I hope people are reading the book though and giving you grace, because what you were going through behind the scenes, that was a lot, and I
Yeah.
think when you have those dark days, you need that crew with you. And it sounds like you had that crew. And I think the way you look at those relationships and friendships is really healthy. Um, However, I hope that those folks that weren't able to kind of ride through that journey with you now read this and realize that also you were needing some healing and you were going through an awful lot.
Yeah. I mean, Sarah, girl, for those people,
Yeah.
like I had parasites coming out of my body. I
I
think that deserves a pass. I think that
Yeah.
deserves a pass, people. Get on
Yeah.
board. Yeah, read the book.
Well,
Yeah.
that one where you felt what you described it during the full moon and you could feel it around your brain. I just was sat there going, oh my goodness. I don't know how I
Yeah.
even would have dealt with that.
Yeah.
Honestly,
And to know
just,
that that's a thing, right? Like the
yeah,
moon is impacting things going on in your body because you don't, uh, in the Western side, we don't think about it that way. So
no.
to go down that journey and
Hmm.
to have someone tell you that and then experience that, I was like,
Yeah.
whew. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
other
I,
things out there that are impacting our lives, and sometimes you don't realize it.
and I'm
Yeah,
not
that
sure if
that
I
that
had,
was
yeah. Sorry, go
that
ahead,
was that
Sarah.
was absolutely crazy when because I remember that, like when I literally felt, I was like, oh my
Oh,
God, like what is
yeah.
that? And then again, now it's normal to me. So like
Yeah.
completely normal to me. I don't bat an eye at it. I'm just like,
Nice.
okay, if I, if and whenever it's a full moon, whenever my emotions get a little, I look and I'm like, oh, it's a full moon. Okay, that makes sense. And if you think about how the moon affects everything else on Earth, like how it affects the
Mhm.
tides and everything,
Hmm.
Yes.
how ignorant are we to think that it wouldn't have an effect
Yeah.
on us and our bodies? If
Yeah.
it can affect these massive oceans, like
Hmm.
it can affect us, which is why hospitals and jails are always full around the full
Hmm.
moon cycle. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
people get crazy, and it's not necessarily them. It can be what's living inside of them.
Yeah.
Right.
And that
Yeah. Oh my
power of
gosh.
nature, just the power of nature, really, yeah. There's something bigger than us, right, in the universe, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, Sarah, one passage that stuck with Claire and I when we were reading the book is you wrote, you are already a part of God, and He is everywhere. The air you breathe, the sound that you hear, the people you meet, your child's laugh, the ground you walk on. Like that got me so choked up when I read that in the book. Like it was so powerful. So what was your relationship with spirituality before going through all of this?
Yeah, so I was raised, my mother was Jewish, my dad was Catholic. So I was raised primarily Jewish. I had my bat mitzvah, I would go to Hebrew school, we would go to temple, the high holidays. And then when my mom passed away at 16, I remember I stopped believing in God because I didn't think that there could be a kind and just God who would allow, a 49-year-old mother to leave her husband and four
Right.
young kids for a very good woman. And my rabbi at Temple, I wrote something about how I didn't believe in God, and he asked me to read it in front of Temple. And I didn't want to. I let him read
Mhm.
it. But from that day on, I pretty much I didn't believe in anything. I
Right.
always resonated with nature, but I really didn't believe that there was a God. So um, when I got sick, when I married my husband, he's very much a man of faith and said, I want to raise our kids going to church. I said, that's fine. Whatever you want to do, I'm on board with. And when I got sick, I asked him, I said, why do you think this is happening? Like, what is
Mhm.
the reason for this? And he said, I think one of the biggest reasons this is happening is for you to refind or reclaim your faith. And when he said that to me, I was angry because I was
Mhm.
like, shut up. This has nothing to do with that. Um, but as time went by, I realized that like one of the only things that kept me going in my darkest times was clinging to the hope or the belief that there is something bigger out there than ourselves. And so I did slowly find my way back to God, um, and a higher power.
Mhm.
And I 100% believe that there is a higher power out there. And I know I'm never gonna fit into somebody else's idea of like what religion should look like for me. I still consider myself Jewish, but I go to church with my husband and kids once in a while. My son is very active in church, but um, I'm okay with my faith and with my conversations with God and in how I pray and how I deal with that. And just because that means I'm not going to temple or I'm not going to church, like as much as the rest of my family is, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that everybody can have their own individual relationship with God and it doesn't need to look the same. So I'm very strong in my belief now. And I think that was one of the things that really got me through all of this.
Yeah, I can see when you are searching for hope, whether it's, going to see a psychic or just asking someone, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be here for these events? Because you want to know what your future holds. And I think there is a safety net of that you're not out there alone. Regardless of what you believe and what your path is, whether it's the universe or if it's God or whatever it may be, that you have someone by your side through the toughest of times. And that is extremely powerful. Yeah. And especially for someone who really feels abandoned, when they're suffering.
Yeah, and another thing too, I just wanted to add with all the psychics I saw, and some were completely legit, some were kind of like, carnival psychics. But
Right.
there was one in particular who, um, she was. I mean, the only way I can say it is she was literally speaking to my family who had crossed over, and so she didn't know anything about me but my first name, and for her to tell me a lot of the things that she did, I think that helped restore my faith too, because I'm like, wow, if there's clearly something else after this
Yeah.
world here that we
Yeah.
can't see,
Hmm.
and so they're still living on, and their energy, their souls are still elsewhere. And so for her to be able to like connect and tell me the things, um I was like, wow, there's definitely something else out there. So
Yeah.
That's powerful. That really is. Sarah, I know your book and some of the conversations we've had today around this really show that the chronic illness was obviously happening to you, but the impact it had on other people, on other people and their impact of their behavior on you, vice versa. So if you could describe how this journey affected your relationships in terms of marriage and as a mother and as a friend, that would be wonderful.
yeah, so I mean, it definitely impacted my marriage. I did a podcast a month or two ago about the impact of chronic illness on marriage and how most relationships wind up in divorce or separation. It made my husband and I, it forced us to communicate in ways we've never communicated before and understand each other in ways, we couldn't have prior to this. So we definitely weathered the storm over the years. It was a very rocky couple of years. Lots of um, misunderstandings and him not understanding what I was going through because I couldn't fully communicate it to him. Me, expecting him to be able to read my mind, and just a lot of like anger and resentment there. So we were able to kind of work through that. And honestly, I think our marriage is probably in the strongest place it's ever been, pre
Wow.
or post sickness. So that's kind of nice. As far as my kids, my daughters were very young when I was going through this, but my middle child, Everly, She is very in tune to everything, very in tune to me. So I think it made her, she needs to know the details for everything. So it made her like want to know what is happening every single minute of every single day. Because I think there was like that uncertainty, like, oh, is mama going to have to nap today? Is mommy going to be able to play with me? How is mom going to show up today? So I think she was always kind of, on pins and needles. And, now that some time has passed and she's gotten older, that's obviously better, but I think it certainly impacted her the most out of all my kids.
And then your wider friends and family. I mean, I know that your family come from a traditional medical background. It sounds like they were very open to different ways. Um, just your journey and those relationships as well.
Yeah, it's certainly allowed us to have more authentic conversations than we've ever had. Again, we've always been kind of stoic, like let's not talk about emotions. And I think my dad and I have gotten to a really good place as far as talking about like the difficult conversations and health stuff. He's had a lot of health issues too. So I think it's created a lot more vulnerability. It's created more openness among us. And, my dad and sister, they were never, and brother, they never, again, I think the judgment was in my own mind. Like they were never judging me for doing this stuff. They just wanted me to get better. And just because they didn't fully understand it didn't mean that they didn't support it. So, I think just I wish that I would have been more open with them when I was going through it all and not after the fact, because I think they really learned about a lot of it when they actually read the book.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think I think one of the things I really, as I read the book, Sarah, and even here today, just your vulnerability and the willingness to share being vulnerable. I know that's something that will resonate with a lot of people listening to this today. And I suppose I'm wondering, did that vulnerability pay off for you?
I hope so. No, I think it did. I think it's made me a much more approachable person. It's certainly made me more empathetic to everybody and everybody's own internal struggles. Again, before I would be like, just suck it up, move on, like let's get going. There's no excuses for anything. And now I'm like, no, it's okay. It's okay if you can't always show up to this because you're dealing with X, Y, and Z. And so it's just made me a lot more like laid back and a lot less strict with just just life. Kind of like it's okay. Like everything's going to be okay. We don't need to worry about this. This is not a big issue right now. So let's just chill out. It is what it is, and let's try to enjoy the moment right now. So um, yeah, I think it's made me a much softer version of myself.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, after everything you've been through, you're probably like, who gives a shit at this point?
You're
Like,
right.
seriously, this is nothing compared to what I
Mhm,
normally go
mhm.
to. And in the book you write, Lyme disease may be both the best and the worst thing that I had to ever overcome. And hearing you talk and obviously read the book, I totally understand that where you're coming from with that. I mean, it's the pain, the transformation on Unravel Uplift. We talk about transformation a lot. So to you go through that metamorphosis of the chronic disease and everything that goes with it. I mean, that's a lot, Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the original title of my book, I was for so many years I wanted to call it Broken Like Me because it was
Hmm.
a song, it's a popular
Mhm,
song, it was
mhm.
Yes.
catchy, and then for so long, even on my vision board I had Broken Like Me, and then when I got done writing it, I'm like, that's a terrible title. That's a terrible title because like I'm not broken.
Right.
Nobody's broken, you
Right.
know? And so I changed it to Silver Scars
Hmm.
because, again, the Japanese, the kintsugi, you lacquer a broken vase with gold or silver, and it's even more beautiful. And so
Hmm.
I'm like, anybody who has overcome any type of trauma or experience a transformation, like they always come out more beautiful than when they started.
Right.
So I really, you know, I really wanted to kind of like nix that broken and say, no, we're not broken. We're more beautiful now.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is
brilliant.
really beautiful. But you did get your fun fact for people who are going to pick up the book. you did have your play with each chapter leading back to music, yes?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're a music fan, when you get the book, there's some titles there that may resonate with you that you're like, why does this seem familiar with me? I thought that was a really cute, fun way to approach it. So you got the best of both worlds with that, with your title and your chapters for sure.
Yes, lots of 90s throwback music there.
Yes. Yes. So listeners, yeah, pick up the book and you'll through the trauma ride that we're going to go on with Sarah, you'll have some fun uplift with those titles for sure. Take you a walk down memory lane.
Okay, well, I think many women listening today may not be battling what you've battled, Sarah, but they might be battling something invisible that others cannot see as well. Burnout, anxiety, grief, perimenopause, depression, caretaking, loss of identity. I mean, the list goes on. I would really encourage people to pick up your book, Sarah, and take inspiration from your experience that you've been so vulnerable in sharing. And the thing that really resonates is that you're not broken, and you realize you're not broken, and that actually those silver scars tell your story and your journey. And I'm so glad that you've shared that with other people. And I'm hoping that our listeners pick up this book, read it, and then share that with others as well. So I think we spent today unraveling the challenges, losses, and lessons from the journey. As we move into the uplift, what wisdom, hope, or unexpected gift emerged from those experiences for you, Sarah?
Yeah. I always knew that I was strong. I think humans, women particularly, we possess this innate inner strength that you never really know how strong you are until you're like forced to walk through the fire. And there's a saying in the Lyme world, like, you have to go through Lyme to get through Lyme, and you never want to get Lyme. And it's very true. Like, you have to fully walk through the fires and the depths of hell to get through Lyme and chronic illness to really come out the other side. And although it can seem like you're not strong enough and you don't have, the wherewithal to get through it, like you do, you do. And it's just taking it, whether that's one day, whether it's 1 minute, whether that's 1 second. Like sometimes it was literally 1 second at a time. I had to remind myself, just breathe and like, just sit here. You're okay. Like, let this pass. And then a couple minutes later, okay, now let's let this pass. Like, just make it to that one next spot until all of a sudden you're like miles away from where you first started. And you look back and you're like, wow, like I did that. I did that. So I just think what I learned is like we are all way stronger than we think.
So Sarah, thank you so much for being here with us today and for sharing your story with such honesty and vulnerability. We know that these conversations weren't always easy and to relive this, but we appreciate you trusting us and our listeners with some of your most personal parts of your story. What I love most about your story is that it's a reminder that healing doesn't always look like we expect it to, whether someone is navigating chronic illness, emotional trauma, grief, burnout, or simply just trying to find themselves again. I think that you've given us all permission to believe that hope is possible and that healing can take many different paths.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure talking with both of you and your community, and look forward to staying connected.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Before we let
thank
you
you,
go,
Sarah.
we'd love for you to tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can find your book and your work, and check out Silver Scars.
Yeah, so they can find me, website, sarahkrivos.com. I'm on LinkedIn. That is the only social media I am on. I'm not on Facebook or Instagram. So find me on LinkedIn. They can also order my book on Amazon.
So, and we'll put all the links in our bio.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, and do go read the book. Honestly, you will not be disappointed. I've learned so much from your experience, Sarah. So thank you for sharing with us. At Unravel and Uplift, we believe that leaves marks on all of us, some visible, some invisible. Your book is called Silver Scars. When you look at your scars today, physical, emotional, and spiritual, we can see what they are reminding you of. What do you hope that they remind every woman who reads your story?
I hope that they remind everybody that we are more beautiful because of our trauma, not in spite of our trauma. So everybody thinks that um, they need to be ashamed of what they've had in their past, whether that's trauma, whether that's um, bad decisions or mistakes they've made, whether that's addiction. we can all overcome difficult things and be more beautiful because of it.
Thank you to everyone who's joined us today. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your story. Continue to follow us at Unravel and Uplift. We hope that today's interview with Sarah has given you some inspiration to fight through the hard things, and to know that you're not alone. And continue to share with us on our communities and on our socials. And we can connect you with Sarah as well if there are questions that you have specific to her. But thanks for joining us today as we unravel and uplift together.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.